Jonesy, we'll start with Sheffield United. Lincoln being old news, of course, now. Last Wednesday, that was nearly a full week since we beat them in the League Cup. But look, Sheffield United, I think that game really, really sums up, James, what it is to support West Ham these days and what it is to support West Ham under David Moyes. A team who've just lost 8-0 to Newcastle the week before, are almost certain to go down this season. You know, those who've been supporting West Ham for as long as we have, it's just easy, isn't it, to go, oh yeah, classic West Ham if we beat these. If we lose to these, or classic, they've lost 8-0, they're going to go down. We'll definitely lose to these today, or I bet we only draw. And you know, that patter, if you like, is sort of part of what it's like to be a West Ham fan, right? It always has been. And obviously it depends, but for a certain sort of amount of fans, it always will be. But it just isn't like that under David Moyes anymore. That's not who West Ham are. And it's almost that invisible, unglamorous work that David Moyes has done that have turned West Ham into this new version of a club that people almost have to take seriously and, you know, are achieving in Europe on a European stage. And it's by winning games like this. All right, it wasn't spectacular. It wasn't glorious. Me and you spoke in a pub after the game, and you'll obviously give your thoughts on it in a minute. But it's fair to say there was a hint of disappointment from you. My cousin was the same afterwards. But from my point of view, I'm still at the stage where I've watched West Ham be dross for so long that any win at home is not a given in whatever competition it is, to be quite honest with you. We could have had Lincoln at home, and I didn't expect us to win that. But what David Moyes does is we beat the teams now that we, in quotation marks, should beat. And that's exactly what happened on Saturday. People are going, I didn't think it was spectacular, should have scored more, which I know is what you're going to say. But I was overall I still get a real wow, West Ham have won a game. Even when, on paper, we should beat them. And I think that's what David Moyes has done. And I thoroughly enjoyed it on Saturday. It wasn't one I'll remember forever, no doubt. But we won the game. I came away nice and happy. And I still am now. And it's carrying me into the week, you know?
No, I completely get what you're saying. And I agree. It's almost new era West Ham, isn't it? It's almost like, yeah, now we're winning games that we should win. And we're doing it more often than not relatively comfortably, which is a hallmark of what the work that he's done, David Moyes. My only gripe, I said it earlier on, was that it's in games like that where we don't seem to be clinical enough. Now, I was very pleased, actually, that both of our goals came from open play. The first one in particular, the build-up play to that was absolutely fantastic. I've moaned for a long time now that our play in the final third lets us down more often than not. And we're very close to becoming known as set-piece FC, particularly with the likes of James Ward-Prowse in the team. But both goals came from open play, which is great. We did come close from set pieces a couple of times. But I'm happy with the win. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, you take any victory in the Premier League, especially at home. But I just felt there were times when I felt like something's missing from this that would make it even better. I'm not complaining that we've won the game, obviously. I'm delighted that we've won the game. We've got another 3 points and we're still in the top 7 of the Premier League. Delighted that we kept a clean sheet. First one in the league this season. But I felt like in games like that, in this new era West Ham team, which you've alluded to, like we should be putting teams to bed. And when we didn't, a late Sheffield United goal makes that a nervy 3 points as opposed to a routine 2-0 win.
But they weren't going to score for weeks.
You know what we're like. We talk about new era West Ham. The new era West Ham still has a tendency to conceding a really, really ridiculous goal and then making it fight. Look at Luton. That was heading to a really routine 2-0 win. They score a 90th minute goal, and suddenly we've got to hang on for the last 7 minutes of stoppage time. And they get in 97th minute corner and thinking they might actually nick it here. And I'm going, they're going to nick this here. So there's still a little bit of that still in this new era West Ham. And that's why with games like that, where you're coming up against a team that's been absolutely annihilated 7 days earlier and is not offering anything by the way of attacking you, put them to the sword, put to bed, like score 4, score 5. I'm not saying stick 8 past them like Newcastle, but really like show that you're serious about it. And I felt like there were times in the game where I didn't feel like we really wanted to score more. I felt like they were quite happy, get the 2 goals, quite happy just to see what happens after that. If we only scored a 2, it doesn't really matter. I just wanted to see us score a few more goals and just go, yeah, like that's what I was expecting today.
But you're talking about new era West Ham. Aren't you now confirming your status as a new era West Ham fan?
No, I'm not.
Well, I think you are.
No, absolutely not. I just think if we're gonna, we know what David Moyes wants from this West Ham team. We've become used to the fact that we don't really like being in possession of the ball. We're a far better team without it. But the one thing that's missing from this West Ham team at the moment is being able to play with the ball against teams that don't like playing with the ball, like Sheffield United. When we come up against teams like that, we beat them 2-0 and it's great. Mate, I'm not moaning about the win. I'm just saying that there's something missing from this team that could elevate us a little bit higher. And I think that is just our final third play. Yes, the 2 goals were great. 2 goals were great, but we should have scored more. We didn't. Fine, but I've moaned about it for a long, long time. We need to be better in possession against teams that are a little bit like us. We need to be a more complete, rounded team and be able to adapt based on the teams that we're playing. Because we set up in that game as if we were kind of hoping that they would have the ball, Sheffield United. That's the way he set up. Started Soucek. He was clear he was going for the set pieces. But that's the perfect game, for example, to play Mohamed Kudus. Yeah. Chuck him in there. And he didn't. And it's like, why are you not starting Mohamed Kudus against a defence that just conceded 8? Get him on the pitch and tell him to wreak havoc on this. Tell him to put those 4 defenders under pressure, those 5 defenders under pressure. Instead, we're going, we'll start off a little bit conservative. We'll chuck Soucek on for the set pieces. And then we'll kind of see where we are in 65, 70 minutes. And then we might chuck the exciting winger on who can wreak havoc. But then, the game's won. So, yeah. That was my only gripe. I'm not moaning about the win. It sounds like I am, and it's frustrating me.
You are.
I'm not moaning about the win. I'm delighted we won, but there are times when I feel like it could be better, and that's not me being a new era West Ham fan. That's me probably having. That's me probably going. How do I say this? I think we're a really, really good team. I think what David Moyes has done to our football club over the last 3.5-4 years, it's been incredible. And what he's turned us into, forget last season in the league, that was a blip. I think what he's turned us into is amazing, and I really do like watching us play. But I still think there is room for improvement in certain areas that would make us far better. And that's on Saturday. I think we saw that, even though we won on Saturday. I think we saw that.
Look, Sheffield United, right? If they hadn't have lost 8-0 to Newcastle the week before, there's no way you wouldn't say that's a top quality defeat. That's their second largest defeat of the season. They might be struggling at the bottom of the table and rubbish, but before the Newcastle game, they hadn't lost a game by more than a goal all season. They lost to Crystal Palace away 1-0 on the opening day. Crystal Palace at home. Nottingham Forest away 2-1 they lost. They only lost 2-1 at home to Manchester City. Lincoln at home in the Cup, they drew 0-0. Sheffield United 2, Everton 2. And then only lost 2-1 away at Tottenham before that Newcastle victory. Like, if it wasn't for the Newcastle thing, I don't think you'd be saying that. David Moyes started Thomas Soucek and Edson Alvarez. And I must admit, I agree with you on that. I think it didn't need that. A team low on confidence, like you say, I don't think it needed two holding midfield players. However, one thing that Hal Stewart from the Sheffield United way told us on this podcast last week, and stats that I then checked out afterwards, that Sheffield United had conceded, I think, 5 goals from set pieces in the opening 6 Premier League games of the season. That's their massive, massive weakness. And they hadn't conceded loads before. Obviously, the Newcastle game was an anomaly. But I think that's what it was. It really was an anomaly. Before that game, Newcastle have now conceded 19 goals. It was 7 before West Ham came to town. Sorry, 17 before West Ham came to town. They'd only conceded 9 from their opening 5 Premier League games before that, and more than half of them were for set pieces. So it makes sense if you've got James Ward-Prowse for David Moyes to go, all right, well, assume Newcastle's a blip and they're not going to get turned over 8-0 again. They're still good. They're still arguably most fallible at set pieces. We're really good at set pieces. So it does make sense. I do genuinely still think that, was he to have played Mohamed Kudus, that was a good game to start him from. First Premier League start, gave him a bit of confidence. Soucek played in the week. Edson Alvarez was good. He would have definitely coped on his own, especially alongside James Ward-Prowse, who is defensively sound as well as a central midfielder. So I agree with you on that part. But I also think the reasoning for starting those 2 players was sound. It just so happened we scored our 2 goals from open play as it was. Naya Fagued obviously heard my charity bet last week and decided that he didn't fancy nodding in from 6 yards away when James Ward-Prowse swung in that corner. But Ward-Prowse's free kicks looks good again. We had a couple of chances to score from set pieces. And yeah, I just sort of think with 1-2-0, I just think it's easy to say, if it wasn't for the Newcastle result, beating Sheffield United 2-0 at home would have and is a very, very decent result. Do you know what I mean? It just sort of annoyed me. And I think it annoys me generally at the moment recently, where fans, and I'm not saying you directly, but sometimes I sort of hear it from people around me that I'm like, will you just enjoy this, for God's sake? Like, not you directly, but I'm just like, just enjoy it. It's good. Like, you're right. Last season was a blip, but like, it's almost like, because we're so conditioned to watching our team be rubbish and our managers and loads of our players be rubbish, it's like we almost don't know how to be when that's not the case. So it's just like, oh, well, I need to find something to moan about anyway because I support West Ham. It's like, if Man City beat Sheffield United 2-0 at home, everyone would be going, yeah, nice routine win for City, another 3 points on the board. West Ham have got 2 massive and harder games this week. Freiburg away Thursday, then Newcastle at home on Sunday. Both of those will take a lot more winning than the Sheffield United game did. So a nice little cruise in third gear, 3 points on the board. Concentrate on Freiburg. I'm sort of, I don't know. I just find it really frustrating recently.
I think from my perspective, it's that yes, 100% enjoying it. 100% enjoying it. This is, the best West Ham team I can remember, best West Ham era of my lifetime. But I think
I knew you were going to say but.
But I think what I've just said earlier is born from the fact that I know how good this West Ham team is, and there's still an element of frustration in the team selection when you can still score from set pieces without Thomas Soucek on the field. And I think it's born out from the fact that I don't want us to become known as set piece FC all of a sudden, when we're a far better team than that. Yes, okay, it's a strength of ours, but we're a far better team than that. Our first goal at the weekend showed that we can play some really good stuff. But our build-up play is few and far between in that area. But when you've got someone like Kudus in the team, that becomes a little bit more easy to come by and a little bit more regular, and it gives you a completely different dimension. Now, thankfully, it didn't affect the result. But there are games in which, you think, okay, well, this is the perfect opportunity to try something a little bit different. Whether or not the Newcastle game had happened, for me, is irrelevant because it did happen.
But that's affected your mindset.
And that's the position that Sheffield, that was the preparation that Sheffield United had built coming into our game.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So, like, the fact is that it happened. They would have been hurt by that, and they would have been affected by that. So we should have been looking again. Yeah, okay, they're rubbish at set pieces, and we're really good at them. But also, they're the type of team that, as we saw against Newcastle last week, if you get at them early and nick an early goal or a couple of early goals, then like it is, they're going to crumble. And we didn't set up in that way. And for me, that was the only frustration. Great, we won. Okay, thankfully, not setting up that way didn't really affect the final result. And it wasn't a bad performance. But that was my only thing. And I think a lot of it's born out of the fact that it's a higher expectation amongst the fan base now. What we've been through over the last 3 years has naturally led to a higher expectation in terms of what we should be doing, who we should be beating, how we should be beating them, where we should be finishing in the table. It's also borne out the fact that we're signing players like Kudus and Edson Alvarez, and been linked with a lot of other bigger players in transfer windows, and we're seeing this team develop into a squad of really top quality European talent, but we're not using it correctly at times. At times we are, and we're winning games. Like the Brighton game was the perfect example of how to approach a game of football in order to beat what's in front of you. At the weekend, I thought the approach was wrong. Okay, it still led to 3 points, but I would have liked to have just seen us give a little bit more. Like start with a little bit of a different intent than let's just go for what we know we're good at, as opposed to let's try something a little bit different here because this is the team to try it against.
Okay, I appreciate that, and I don't think it would have hurt to put Kudus on. I think it would have been good actually, probably for his confidence. And then you give, I think, you rest Thomas Soucek. I think that would have been fine. As it was, he scored from open play, which again, he's like a new man this year. His new contracts obviously helped. Declan Rice's departure has definitely helped. It means he can go forward again. And because he's not that pretty and he's a bit gangly and he's a bit ungainly, people overlook the fact that he's really good at going forward. He got some, he got on the score sheet lots, and not just from set pieces, from open play as well. In his first couple of, his first successful spell at West Ham before Declan Rice decided he wanted to be the one who's going to develop the Frank Lampard side of his game, even though he's well and truly playing as a more defensive midfielder at Arsenal. And I'm delighted to see Soucek playing. I think perhaps what I'm defending most passionately in all of this argument, James, is that I agree with you, to be honest. I think start Kudus, but what I am keen to stress is that people will go, oh, David Moyes is such a defensive, conservative manager. That's why he starts two holding midfielders, No, the vastly more likely reason for that was because he's seen that Sheffield United was seriously vulnerable from set pieces this season. I mean, 5 set piece goals conceded in 6 games is a lot, isn't it? That's an average of 1 a game. So he's probably thinking, we've got the best free kick taker in the league pretty much. Plus, so it's good. Plus, I've got Kurt Zouma, Nayef Aguerd, Edson Alvarez, and I can throw on Thomas Soucek instead of 4'3" Kudus. I think Kudus is genuinely shorter than you. I didn't really realise, but he's proper tiny. But it was, I think it's more that. It's like, people are so easy to go, oh, yeah, classic defensive David Moyes. It's like, well, no, you're just assuming it's that because you aren't aware that Sheffield United, unlike David Moyes will be, and his extensive team of expensive video analysts. There we go. Yeah. They will know that Sheffield United have conceded loads from set pieces this season. So therefore, David Moyes, do you know what I mean? Like, I still think I'd like to see Kudus, but it's not just because he's this defensive dinosaur.
No, I understand why he's set up that way. And that would have been the exact reason why. The moment I saw Soucek in the team, I was like, okay, he's gone for set pieces. But I would have liked to have seen him maybe try something a little bit different. Like, yes, he's almost gone for the jugular a little bit with Sheffield United with that lineup, as opposed to going, okay, well, we could still go for the jugular with the 4 other players. Kudus scored from a header from a free kick in the Europa League, so like he's capable of getting on the end of stuff from corners. Like, try something a bit different. That was the team to try something a bit different against, and it didn't do it, and it still worked fine. Happy days, 3 points, 7th in the league. But I was a little bit disappointed when I saw the lineup. But it doesn't matter because we won anyway.
No,
so
exactly,
who am I to question it, really?
Yeah, who are any of us to question him? To be fair, I think that's why he gets £6 million a year or whatever, and yeah, we're sitting here chatting to each other on
we get
computers.
£6 a week on £6 a week on YouTube.
Exactly, mate. Yeah. Real big hats off, though. I want to say I thought Vladimir Coufal was absolutely outstanding again, and I've really enjoyed. The 2 Czech boys, to be fair, were 2 of the guilty parties last season when our Prem form severely dipped. They were 2 of the ones where you thought, oh, it's finally sort of, they were only on the cheap, and perhaps they were just enjoying a particularly hot run of form. And perhaps, as we saw, Fabian Balbuena, I'll never forget him. £3 million, I think he cost. He had the absolutely sensational season, and then it started to tell, and you were like, oh, that's why it was £3 million. Anyway, get rid of him. We've got great value for money for the season we did. Move him on. And I thought perhaps last season was that with the Czech boys. I was like, yeah, just like flash in the pan, sort of new to the Prem. No one knows how to deal with them or what they're about. They've hit the ground running, but then they're gonna settle to their level, and perhaps we'll realise it's not West Ham. But that's quite the opposite has been proven. Coufal, it's his 3rd assist in 3 games. 2 obviously against Liverpool and Man City, or 1 each against those 2 teams. He marauded down the right-hand side. Defensively, outstanding again. All right, granted, Sheffield United, and this is really, really worth noting, were rubbish, really rubbish. They wouldn't have scored if we played for 6 more weeks, let's be honest. But he still did what he had to do defensively. Stood up to every challenge in front of him. Really dangerous and good and effective going forward. And he feels like, when he bursts on the scene again, everyone was like, who is this bloke? He's absolutely sensational. And he feels back to his old level, as does Soucek. And it's nice you feel that they're going to contribute and be a big part of West Ham for the season to come. So I just wanted to make give a special nod to Big Vlad.
Yeah, I think Coufal only got, 2 assists all last season. He's already got three this season. Really linking up really nicely with Bowen down that right hand side, which we saw in his first season. Like fantastic. We don't really have a great deal of backup in that area, so we want to keep him fit for the season. But seems like both he and Soucek's probably sort of, like you mentioned earlier, thriving on the fact that he signed a new deal. Declan Rice not being there as well has probably helped him. But I think Coufal maybe just last year there were question marks over, his form wasn't great, but he still wasn't guaranteed a starting 11 spot. Whereas this year it looks like that spot's his. And I think he's probably thriving on that assurance that, he's going to be in the team every week. And that's just giving him a nice little boost of confidence, having that responsibility down that right-hand side, like we saw in his first season. So, it's good.
Yeah,
happy.
Couldn't agree more, mate. Jarrod Bowen absolutely goes strength to strength. He was excellent again at the weekend. You've obviously, despite the fact that in the FPL fantasy blog that we're doing in partnership with Betway this season, the little head-to-head competition between me and you, appreciate people are bored. People don't want to hear about people's fantasy teams, right? I appreciate that now. But despite the fact there was a rule in that you had to have 1 West Ham player in your squad, I showed faith in our main talisman, and I've had Jarrod Bowen in my team from week 1. You went the Schneid route and picked Divine Mabamo, who's the cheapest West Ham player on the game, and have left him on your bench week in, week out ever since. And Jeroboam, once again, he really is. He again flaked off a little bit last season, but he seems to be thriving as West Ham. He's like the poster boy this season, isn't he? He's thriving off the fact that he is probably our best player, him and Lucas Paqueta, of course. Paqueta, I thought, again, just like clearly one of the best players at the weekend. It's just so easy for him, football, isn't it? He just sort of strolls around literally in second gear, being so much better than every single Sheffield United player. Emerson, I thought, what a signing he's proved to be. Like, he's really genuinely such a great addition to the team. I think he's a class act. And it was really nice at the weekend, Jones. You're just watching every single West Ham player have a 8 out of 10 and it not look like they were playing at the very peak of their powers. And Areola, great decision that. It's just like, this is good. This is what a proper professional team full of quality players, but also work hard for the team. This is what they look like. And it was just wonderful. But just it's hard to pick out an individual, really, isn't it? I did want to give a hats off to Coufal, but everyone looks good, don't they?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of players in that team that were there last season who were involved in that cup win that have really stepped up even further this season. And you mentioned Emerson there. Like, he had his best game in a West Ham shirt in that final in Prague. He was outstanding in Prague. And this season, he's just carried that on. Similar with Bowen, obviously, he gets the winner in Prague. Had a good season last year, but not his best. And he's hit the ground running. And it does feel like a lot, that cup win for a lot of those players that were there last year is really given them the confidence and the belief that, they can continue, not just at West Ham, but their careers as well. I think they've realised that they're probably better than a lot of people would give them credit for, and they're going out and they're showing it week in, week out at West Ham, and it's really changed the dynamic of the team and their own individual responsibilities. So you're right, there isn't a single player in that who played at the weekend, or even in the squad this season, really, that you can go absolute nightmare, need to get rid of them. Like, they're all contributing in one way, shape, or form, even if they're just coming off the bench each week. So yeah, like 8 out of 10s all round, like you said.
Yeah, fair enough. And talking of absolute nightmares who we have to get rid of coming off the bench, Said Benrahma on the weekend. Sorry, I will say, actually, not included in that 8 out of 10 is Mikel Antonio at the weekend. I thought he was terrible. I know he set up Thomas Soucek's goal, probably by accident. I thought he was terrible at the weekend. He bottled out of doing his podcast, didn't he, after giving it the big one before the Liverpool game where he was rubbish. Callum Wilson did a really good job, by the way, of reading out his stats from the Liverpool game. And, he was pretty pants again at the weekend. I thought the only sort of weak link in the team. And then when Said Benrahma came on, this isn't the vendetta of mine, because it isn't really a vendetta. I just look at him and think he's a rubbish player and aren't impressed by pointless stepovers. And I think Kudus is just going to show him up as different level, completely different level. Whether he'll play on a wing or not, I don't know, but he's just different gravy. And he was rubbish when he come on Benrahma. And I genuinely think that people are starting to see it a bit more. Even all it is the previous Benrahma fans shouting about he's the best thing since sliced bread. Not that they're particularly going, yeah, hands up, we got it wrong. They're just going quiet now. So all you sort of have got is the people going, like me, told you he was rubbish. And he was pants when he came on Saturday.
I did think of you when it was in the second half and Kudus and Benrahma were both on. Kudus gets the ball down on the far right-hand side, turns 2 players, beats another 3, and he's clear, he's running it, and he plays it out wide to Benrahma. It's a fantastic bit of play from Kudus. Got everyone up on their feet. And then he lays the ball out wide to the left of Benrahma. And I can't remember what Benrahma does. It was either an overhit cross or he's like overhit shot or something. But it was like the polar opposite of like some fantastic class play from one side of the pitch, distributed to the other side of the pitch, and it's just wasteful and rubbish. And the first thing I thought of was you, because I thought he's probably spitting feathers at this moment. Will he's probably all over the place. But you're right. I think Kudus could have shown him up in that moment because he did all the hard work, gave it to Ben Rama out on the left, and Ben Rama just doesn't do anything with it. And it was a bit like, look, that's how you do it. So you will show him up, and I know I've complained that Kudus didn't start, but I don't think it's only a matter of time before he's starting every week. Ben Rama is consigned to the bench long term.
Yeah, I wonder. Kudus looks pretty capable and handy in the middle, doesn't he? I wonder how he's going to work that, Moisey, with who ends up in that left wing spot, because it's Paqueta or Kudus seem to be the main two options.
I think he'll play in a very similar role as Bowen, but just on the other side of the pitch, because Bowen will float essentially, go out right. He'll drop deep sometimes, and I think Kudus would just be the exact same option.
Yeah.
But from the other side of the pitch with Antonio or another striker leading the line.
Yep. Fair enough. Lincoln away. We won 1-0. Really not a lot to talk about in that game. Could have started, played okay. We were okay. We weren't sensational. Lincoln were really good. Credit to them, to be fair. I think they can, and they did, and rightfully felt a bit hard done by after that game. But yeah, Thomas Soucek comes on and makes a difference with that goal. And yeah, not pretty and not one you'll want to watch back in a hurry, obviously, but we did get the job done just about. Anything particular to talk about from the game, Jonesy, or the fact that we've got Arsenal in the cup afterwards throws it forward a bit, I assume, the Declan Rice Derby, as we've mentioned. Yeah, it's just annoying. The draw is annoying. As I say, every season, everyone goes, oh, we should be winning the domestic cup. It's like, yeah, all right, mate, sure we should. Just like every team outside of the, every team of fans outside the Big Six. It's such a weird and rubbish football trope, that one, because it sort of suggests that the big teams don't want to win these cups as well, which they obviously do. Arsenal at home. When Man United got drawn out at home, we were still in the hat. I was like, I'm pretty much done with football forever if we draw Man United away, because as you know, we know the stats. We've drawn them something like away in 5 of the last 7 domestic cup draws that we've had, or like domestic in the 5 of the last 7 seasons. I think we've drawn Man United away in one of the cups. And then, I think Mansfield and I can't remember who they got. It's like Port Vale or something like that. Exeter, they were still in it, weren't they? Yeah. I'm just going to have a look at the things now. But yeah, I mean, so at the time, there was still a couple of like draws. Yeah, Mansfield versus Port Vale, Exeter, Middlesbrough are the other draws, Ipswich, Fulham, Everton, Burnley. There were a few teams still left in the hat at the time. And yeah, obviously we drew Arsenal at home. People call it the Declan Rice Derby. I don't know whether he'll play, but what are your thoughts on that draw?
A mixture of, I'm absolutely not surprised that it's Arsenal that we've drawn and not one of the League One teams that were left. At the same time, annoyed because it's probably another season where we're not going to go deep in this competition. Whether it's a Declan Rice Derby, he probably will. I think he probably will play. He was like with us. He played every game, didn't he? Pretty much. So I wouldn't be surprised if he does play. Whether I think the League Cup's high on the agenda for Mikel Arteta, and I'm not assuming this is an Arsenal podcast or anything, but I think he'd be looking at this cup, going, let's go, let's try and win this. Because that's literally the only thing that's missing from his Arsenal team tenure at the moment is actually like, I think he won one FA Cup, but they're going to want more silverware. They're going to want regular silverware if that's going to be a success. This project that he's leading them on, so he'd be looking at this, going, happy days. They'll play a strong side, I think. Yeah,
maybe. I proper fancy it. I think it's really I'm well up for going. It's one of those where, you get Blackburn at home and you think, maybe not. Especially if having to shuffle work commitments around to sort of go to West Ham. That one, though, all over it. 1st of November, it's penciled in for at the moment. I don't know whether that's subject to change.
It's been confirmed 1st of November. It's on TV. Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay.
Wednesday
so 7:30. 7:30 Wednesday the 1st. Yeah, it's an exciting time nonetheless. I would have just liked, I sort of don't mind it a little bit further in the competition, but last 16 is a bit underwhelming, isn't it? Next round, next round's quarterfinals, isn't it? So
yeah, especially when you're going in at the third round, then go out of the fourth in this competition. Yeah, it's a bit like, oh, really? But
what are you going to do? Yeah, you never know. Might not go out. Arsenal at home, got half a chance. They've obviously got European football to contend with this season as well, so probably their fourth highest priority, where as it is ours, I suppose, as well. But yeah, that will be an exciting game.